Good evening. My name is Jennifer. I work in communications. Thank you for coming out so we could talk about the attendance boundaries for Idlewood. We know you have a busy week. Are the parents excited? It's our last week before break. Are the students excited? It's our last week before break. Yeah, we're excited too. So this is our second in a series of 3 meetings that we're having to engage our community about our attendance boundaries. So the first meeting, we shared our situation and received some feedback. So our Chief Operations Officer, Eric Hofstetter, is going to go over that tonight so you can see the feedback we received from our last meeting. And then what we're going to do is present 2 options for you tonight. We'll present those 2 options, again, collect more feedback, and then after the holiday break, we will come back in January and engage with you one more time, and then by that point, we will be able to make a recommendation to the Board of Education moving forward, okay? So I will turn it over to Mr. Hofstetter, and again, thank you for coming out.
All right, thank you. How about a round of applause for our Public Affairs Officer, our Chief Communications Officer. Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate it. And thank you all for coming out tonight. This is as she said, this is our second meeting of the process. We will generally have 3 meetings, so there's 1 more to go. And what I want to do right now is just do a brief overview of what we said in the first meeting, if you haven't seen it, so we can do it together. And then we're going to present a couple of options, and we're going to get some feedback from you, okay? And then we'll take that feedback. We'll look at some of the options and how it applies to the options. And then again, we're going to come back in January and try to give you what the final option might be. And we'll get some feedback on that. Ultimately, it must be approved by the Board of Education, okay, in an open meeting. So everybody will know, all right? All right, so let's just go through a few things here. All right, we're going to do a quick review. At the same time, our trusty technician, Jay, wave Jay. Jay's over there. He's setting this up for you because we want to do some interactive feedback from you. But in the meantime, let me give you the brief rundown. So Idlewood Elementary School is on the list for this summer to have a major renovation project, which means new roof, new air conditioning, new paint, new floors, and all kinds of other things like that, right? So we can make the school look much more modern than it is right now, okay? We love this school. The walls are good, but everything else is just getting a little old. All right, so it's gonna look great when we're finished. We're looking at starting that this summer of 2025, and we're gonna probably complete that by 2027. So it's gonna take about 1.5 to 2 years. Now, one of the things that we know here at Idlewood is that we're overcrowded, right? We have 880 students, roughly? Close to 900 students that go to school here. And the school without the modular units is built for about 700. So we're about close to 200 children over what the building was designed for, okay? The other thing is we don't want students having to have class out in modular trailers or mobile trailers, okay? We want them in the building. All right. Just again, a quick review how this works. We already had our first meeting. That was a couple of weeks ago. We're back tonight to get more feedback on the options. And then in January, and I believe it's January 9th, will be our 3rd meeting, and we're going to try to come back with 1 recommendation and get your feedback on that, all right? If everything goes to plan, and if we're ready to, we'll present it to the board at the January 13th meeting for their first read and review, okay? Again, just want to reiterate the policy, right? Every school has an established attendance area, zone, right? So if you live in that zone, then that is the school you're assigned to, okay? Right now, because of the renovations and the overcrowding, this compels us to take a quick look or a good review of the boundary to see if adjustments need to be made. And that's what this process is all about. So again, thank you for being part of the process. All right, we have a couple of guiding principles that we use in order to structure this process. And I want you all to really think about these because this is how we approach trying to make options and arrive at some type of decision together, all right? We prioritize, okay, equitable access to a high-quality education, okay? We look at it and evaluate all these options through a district-wide lens. So not just here at Idlewood, but how it impacts other schools, all right? So that we can provide the equitable access to high-quality education for all students, okay? Our third one is what we call minimizing, and we want to try to minimize disruption to the greatest amount of people, right? Because it just impacts learning, okay? And then fourth, we have to comply with laws, board policies, and other requirements, whether legal or by our board, all right? So somewhere in there, using those guiding principles, we arrive at some decisions. Now, additionally, in our board policy, right, written in Board of Education policy, we start off with 3 primary criteria on making decisions or options. We look at the geographic proximity, meaning we don't want to take students that live in, way down by Arabia Mountain and drive them past all these schools to come here if we don't have to, right? That's too far, all right? So we have to take that into consideration. We look at instructional capacity. So what the school was designed, how many students it's designed to teach, all right? And whether or not that's over or under, all right? Plus, if we make boundary changes, we don't want to create a problem at another school, okay? And then last, that's that projected enrollment. So we look out, 3 to 5 years, is enrollment growing, not just here, but at other schools where children may be reassigned to. So again, we don't cause a problem elsewhere, all right? And we have to take all that into consideration, all right? So now when the primary criteria usually helps us get that frame of mind, then we come back with our secondary criteria, again, written in board policy. We look at traffic patterns, okay? Just because you're nearby a school, we may not be able to get you there by bus very easy because there might be an airport in the way. And it takes 40 minutes to drive all the way around the airport, all right? We also look to see, is it on a bad road or a major road or blind spots, things like that. So safety and traffic patterns is one of our secondary criteria. Second, we look at previous redistricting. We don't want to have students being redistricted every year. We want stability. So when at all possible, we make a choice, right? We make the adjustment, and we let that go for as many years as we can, or which makes sense, okay? And that creates stability. We look at special programs. For example, programs that serve special needs, English language learners. We have other academic programs, and all kinds of other special programs, and we need to consider the impact that any decision has on those, okay? So again, we can best serve students. Fourth, we look at keeping our neighborhoods intact, all right? So we look at boundaries and we try to draw attendance lines so they're not going in between somebody's side yard, in between houses, right? And we don't want to take part of a neighborhood necessarily, right? So we look at things that make sense, right? What's the geographic area of the entire neighborhood? And we try to keep those intact going to school so that students are also going to school with their neighborhood friends when at all possible, okay? We look at the condition of the facility. Those of you who've been here, you've seen Idlewood, and I've already shared that we are looking at modernizing the school. And then feeder alignment. So right now, all students here will matriculate or advance to Tucker Middle School and ultimately Tucker High School. So we look at that feeder pattern, and when possible, we want to try to keep that intact, right? So that even if you go to a different elementary school, you're still going to end up at Tucker Middle School and then Tucker High School. Does that make sense? Okay, so we look at that and consider that. And then lastly, we look at any kind of efficient or economical operation of the school district, okay? And that's so we can be fiscally responsible. So this is where we presented at the last meeting. We asked for feedback and to share with us, okay? Now, when we look at on the feedback that we're going to ask from you, and I'm going to ask that you put it in a framework of which we can use that information, okay? And we had some very thoughtful and very deliberately thoughtful comments and other feedback from the last meeting. And we're grateful for that because that really helps us focus in on what we can best serve our community with, okay? We are open and we'll commit to receiving all of that information and we'll use it to consider, okay? But again, we also have to balance all the different perspectives, right? Because everybody has different viewpoints and we don't want to weight one over the other, but we do need to see, what's the thought here? What are we looking at? All right, now throughout the session, we will provide you with some note cards. If you have questions or comments or other things that you want us to know, you can simply write on there. We'll take that back with the staff. We'll look at all those comments as we continue, okay? We also have an email set up, so if you think about it later on and you want to email us, please just email dcsdbuilds@DeKalbSchoolsGA.org. Okay? We look at all of that. Jay, raise your hand again. Jay gets all of those. He compiles them for us in a big list, and we try to see what's going on, and we'll answer as many of those as we can. Okay? But we certainly appreciate the comments. All right. So from the last meeting, just to share a few things. First of all, what do we hear at our last meeting? Roughly 75%, or 3 out of 4 people, were employees of the DeKalb County School District. Okay? We're looking to get more information from our parents of students and, of course, our community members so we can listen to more voices. Okay? Most of the schools, we did have some representation from Tucker Middle School and Tucker High School, but most of the representation identified themselves as being part of Idlewood Elementary, which makes sense, right? All right. All right, so the most important primary criteria from what everyone shared with us was instructional capacity was very important to them, okay? It's followed by then geographic proximity, okay? So those were the primary. So we use that when trying to develop options, okay? Then we looked at the secondary criteria, and as you can see, at least 46%, that was their most important, was instructional capacity, followed by safety and traffic patterns, and then a little bit of the other ones. So that's kind of the feedback we received. When we had staff sit down to make options, they used that as their consideration, okay? We also had some other comments, just freehand that people gave us. They would rather just have a whole new elementary school, okay? We appreciate that, but that's not what was approved, so this is what we got. There was comments about using space down at Stone Mountain Middle School, just a few blocks away. So we looked at that, all right, and we put some consideration there. They asked, feedback was to consider the impact on students and staff during renovation. Short answer is, by moving students off this campus during the renovation, that would be less exposure altogether, okay? And then lastly, they wanted to consider the impact of moving teachers and staff, okay? So that's some of the feedback that we received, okay? And now we're gonna look at those options for consideration, okay? One, geographic proximity, because that's what was told to us, right? That's what people have told us, all right? So you can see here in the cluster, you have Idlewood Elementary sitting at over 115% of capacity, being overcrowded. We looked at Brockett, right up the road, that's 78%. And we looked at Smoke Rise Elementary School at 54%. So there's a lot of seats available in adjacent elementary school zones, okay? We looked at the enrollment forecast for the entire cluster. And here we are, you can see kind of right here, around 2,600 total, right? But moving forward, a little bit of growth, but nothing too significant, right? But there's a little bit of growth. For the most part, we consider that somewhat stable, okay? So we looked at a few scenarios, okay? And not in any particular order, but based on the feedback that was given to us. First scenario was we do nothing and just leave it the way it is, okay? That's an option. We looked at moving just part of the school, 4th and 5th grades, over to Stone Mountain Middle School, okay? And we kind of assessed the impact on that and how that would occur. We looked at rezoning all of Brockett Elementary School to Stone Mountain Middle School, Smoke Rise Elementary, and then move part of Idlewood over to Brockett. Okay, so we considered that. That's a big bite, though, for a school. Okay. We looked at trying to balance enrollment at all the schools in the cluster, so not just here at Idlewood, but also Smoke Rise, also Brockett, also at Midvale, also at Livesey, right, and the other elementary schools, and try to balance through them all. Okay. Then we were told from feedback, let's just look at redistricting parts of Idlewood attendance zone to the Smoke Rise attendance zone. Or redistrict part of Brockett Elementary to Smoke Rise, and then parts of Idlewood to go to Brockett. Okay? So we looked at different scenarios and tried to see what might be the best based on our guiding principles, right, and the criteria and the feedback that you supplied to us. All right, so we come down to two options here that we're going to present to you tonight. Okay, one was based on instructional capacity, which was important, and one was based on proximity. The goal is to reassign approximately 350 to 400 students from this campus to other schools, right? That's our goal. All right, that will help with the renovation, that will help with the right sizing and the balancing, all right, and a host of other issues as well. So option one, all right, currently the Idlewood zone is here in blue. It goes all the way out like this, right? What we are presenting as an option is two zones, and you'll see it here in pink, in the pink color, here and here. Those students would be reassigned to Smoke Rise Elementary School. Those that live in the blue area would stay at Idlewood, okay? This would move approximately, it gets Idlewood down to about 500 students, okay? It makes Smoke Rise up about 95% capacity, okay? It's a newer school and it's much larger. It holds about 950 to 975 students, okay? And there's only about 500 there right now, okay? So that would be a difference of about 388 students based on those zones, okay? I'm going to let that sit just for a second, okay? Okay. And then I'll go on number two, right? So again, this was proximity, a little bit closer, right? A little more students, a little bit closer, all right? Option two scenario, all right? Again, here is your zone, the current zone, looking at taking just this part here in pink, this one large part of everything basically west of Brockett Road, and reassigning all students who live there to Smoke Rise, okay? That's about 418 students, okay? Again, it gets Idlewood down around 500 or less, and brings those students over to Smoke Rise and still leaves some room at Smoke Rise, about 96, 97% at capacity, okay? All right, I'll let that just sink in there just for a moment. Okay, all right. All right, hang on one second here. Again, scenario two, and I'll go back to scenario one just so you can see it again. Okay. Just take a moment. Sorry?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just one moment here as we set up to the next. Okay. You want to put on the slide? All right, if you have your phone, we'll try to get some interactive feedback from you tonight. If you go ahead and scan this QR code, or you can type in www.slido.com. Please put in the code, or again, you can go right to the QR code. There's a couple of questions there we would like for you to answer. Okay. Okay, the first question on there is, we just like to know who we're talking with. And it looks like here we got some employees, we got some parents right now, about half and half. But please go ahead and put your answers in. We want you to know that we are getting this information and it's live. So we do get your feedback, okay? Just want you to see that. Again, we appreciate it. Looks like parents have taken the lead. Okay. All right. Do a little bit more there. We'll answer some more questions. Okay. So welcome parents and welcome employees of the school district. Thank you. Okay. All right. Now the other thing we want to know is what school are you most connected with? So if you're a parent of a child, which school do they attend or which school do you identify with? Go ahead and put that in so we know who we're talking with. Okay, this is done in word cloud form, so the bigger the word, right, the more people that are identifying with that school. Okay, looks like we got some Idlewood, we got some Smoke Rides parents here with us, or employees. We got some Tucker Middle, that's good. And Idlewood's growing bigger and bigger here on this one. Okay. Jack, what's the next question? What's the next question? Do what? Yeah. All right, then what is this exercise? I don't know anything about this thing. She put what on the slide? Okay. All right, we'll just leave that up there just for a second here, but please respond while we move on to the next. Oops. Let me see this here. Where are my 4 questions? I leave them. I don't know. Okay. We're going to deviate a little bit here. We had a special guest star, but apparently they had an emergency, so we're going to have to change it up a little bit. But we still want your feedback. So back on your Slido, if we look at the different options. Okay, scenario 1. And the question is, it's on there, yeah. Okay. So here's scenario 1, as you can see, our different formats, right, or different options of the attendance zone. And I believe there's some questions on there if you'd like to answer those. So it's on. So basically on that one. Is that it? Yeah. That's what she did? All right, again, if you have this, and maybe I should explain this a little bit better here. You have a paper here in front of you, okay? And you'll see our guiding principles, right? All right, where it says prioritize, evaluate, minimize, and comply, okay? And then on your Slido, you'll see some questions basically about that. What we want is feedback. How do you respond to those? So just tell us what you're feeling on that, so we can get an idea on that option. For option 1, or scenario 1, that's up here on the screen. Okay? I think that's on the other sheet, right? Yep. Yep. And again, you should have a second sheet that has the 2 scenarios. Okay? All right.
We can answer it.
Are they answering?
There's no question.
They're not seeing the questions? I don't know. I don't know if they can get the QR code. More time? Okay. Is it on there? Okay, again, if you take the QR code, or unless you're still on there, you'll see the questions. Go ahead and answer those. Okay. All right, go ahead and keep answering. We're seeing it on the other side. We'll post it in a moment, but we want to ensure everybody has a chance to go ahead and put up some of their responses.
Could I ask you a question?
Yes.
You said
Anything? Sounds like from our conversations, did everybody have a chance to kind of respond to the questions? Okay. We'll go ahead, and Jay will show us what we're looking at here. We'll give that a moment as it brings in all that feedback.
When do we get to ask a question?
All right, as it's still calculating here, we can see on the scale, right, how much it minimizes disruption. And it looks like 1 is least, right? Yeah. Yep. All right, now we're going to do the same thing for scenario 2 on your phone. All right, and then we'll open it up to questions and other comments after that. Okay, so go ahead, take a moment, look at scenario 2 on your pages, and if you don't mind, please respond to those questions.
Can we flip it to scenario 2?
Done.
Oh, look at you. You got it. I gotta stand up. I've been sitting too long. Oh, thank you.
Want to go ahead and tell them?
Yep. All right, as you're doing that, Ms. Jennifer and staff and Ms. Tanya, they're going to be handing out index cards. So if there's something that you want us to know or you want to ask, please write that on the card, okay? And when we're finished answering on our phones, then we'll go ahead and we'll answer some of your questions on the cards.
Yeah. I think this is our first time meeting in person. Yeah. When we're cares. Yeah, sure. I'll bring you up today. I'm just interested, with things with education over the whole renovation. So, you guys have to. Yeah.
So we're just trying to get some feedback.
Yeah. Pretty good. This community. Yeah, but we get some nuggets out of all that. Excuse me.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right, we'll take another minute or two to finish answering. All right. Again, you should have some index cards if you'd like to write a question or a comment on there. Then we'll come back around and collect them, and we'll answer a few of those. We'll have Dr. Elder answer those questions.
Listen, can you go back to the screen and show the percentage at every school? Because that's. Right now. Okay, so.
More minutes for scenario
Yep.
2.
Jay, we about ready for scenario 2? All right, we'll go ahead and post up some of your responses for scenario 2. We'll let that calculate here for a moment. And I believe we've been around collecting the index cards, so we'll answer some of those questions as well. Is that done? What does that mean?
What does 5 mean? Most of them are 5. What does that mean?
Okay, and then again, when we look at scenario 2, 5 being most favorable, I guess, in this situation, looks like we got a good 47% feel that way. All right, so thank you for sharing that info. We're going to ask a few questions now. Miss Jennifer, if you're ready.
If your questions are done, if you could raise them up, we'll come around and get them. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else with questions? No. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for submitting the questions. And I'll slide over. Of course, if you have additional questions, you can submit them with the Slido. Mr. Hofstetter, first question is there a possible way for just relocated students to have a new school and renovate the whole school and have less time to renovate? Is there a possible way to just relocate students to a new school and renovate the whole school, and then have less time to renovate?
Yes, that's a very good question. We looked at that early on in the project. The biggest issue is the 800 or nearly 900 students here. We don't have enough seats for all 900 students right now. If we could, then we would relocate the school, but the only way to do it is by disbanding the school into many different other schools, and that causes a lot of disruption. But if we can get 400 students off campus, that allows us to use the modulars as temporary space, so we can move students out of the building. It saves just about the same amount of time for the renovation. So there wasn't enough time saved when we looked at it with our contractor in order to make that kind of move with that many students. So, but great question. Yeah, thank you.
Is there a way to build a new school completely?
Well, there's always a way to build a new school. What was approved by the Board of Education a few years ago was a renovation of this school. And the funds allocated for that were not enough, obviously, to build a brand-new replacement school. So using the funds that we have with what was approved, we're going to modernize the school. So what that means is the walls will stay where they're at, right? But it's going to look a lot different, right? It'll be much more modern, new floors, new paint, lights, ceilings, roof, HVAC, air conditioning. We're even looking at doing the outside for additional parking, additional roads to get more cars off the road, and sidewalks and all kinds of other fields and things of that nature for the children. Okay, so we're going to try to upgrade the campus as much as possible.
Will students have access to bus routes to Smoke Rise?
Yes, any student who would live in the zone that is being reassigned to Smoke Rise will be eligible for bus transportation to Smoke Rise. Okay? Now, there is a board policy, and we should have showed it. In the board policy, if you have a child that is a rising fifth grader, meaning they'll be in fifth grade next year, right? They're currently in fourth grade, they'll be in fifth grade next year, you can put in a request to remain at this school, but you have to provide your own transportation. Okay, so if your child wanted to finish their school here, their schooling here in fifth grade only, you can put in a request to remain, but you must provide your own transportation to and from school. Sorry? Yes. Yes. Yeah, so once this is approved, because we don't have any of it approved yet, so once we know what's official and approved, we'll be back to share all the information, forms and other processes, okay? Right now, we're just in the step of trying to figure out where, right? And then once we have that, then we'll be able to provide that information for you, but thank you for asking that. Yep.
You said, how are you trying to pretty much know what student, let's say I want to request my child to stay here. How are you going to know who to choose to stay? How's that going to be?
So it's in actually the board, yeah.
Question that
Yeah.
she asked.
So it was,
How will you know where she asked, how will you know where students live? Pretty much, yeah.
Like, who would be chosen if they wanted to stay in fifth grade? Like,
In
would you
fifth
only
grade.
take a certain
Absolutely.
amount of kids? Would you only get six?
so I'm going to introduce you to Mr. David Yokes. Wave your hand, David. So David is our map maker, GIS, and all things data. He knows who lives where on these maps. So when we look at this zone right here, he knows all the students who are in that zone. Okay? We know how many fifth graders are in that zone and how many fourth graders, how many third graders. So once this process has a final recommendation, we'll be able to come back and we have processes to let those know who's coming into fifth grade under board policy, along with the process of how to request that, if that is your choice. Okay? Yep, great question. Great question, yeah. We'll be back with more.
Thank you. I just want to let everyone know that if you submitted a comment, then I'm going to move that over to operations and we will collect that. So I have reviewed it, I read it, and I will give it to operations so they can collect that. Next question. When will the construction start?
All right, so we are anticipating construction to start this summer. So as soon as school is out, we're looking to make some moves here. If anything, we'll try to start a little bit prior to the school year, but we're not going to do anything major until the students are out of the building for this summer. Okay? How many more you want to do?
Couple more. How long will this new plan be implemented? And once a solution is decided, is this a temporary fix to address the issue during the school renovations so the school can handle the current capacity, or is this for after the renovations? So I think they're asking is, When will we implement the new attendance lines, and then will this be in effect once the renovations are ongoing and after?
Okay, great question again. So this has to be approved by the Board of Education, whatever recommendation we give. Our plan is to take that in January, in next month, right? If the board approves it, it will be in effect for next school year, so August, okay? Did I answer that one? Yeah. Now,
They want to know also asking who, if they come back, are they coming
all right,
back?
so the question is, are they coming back? Right now, this is a reassignment, so that will be the reassignment until it's changed again, okay? We're not going to keep moving students around. Now, you may be familiar with the Student Assignment Planning Committee, or you may not be, but the district has a standing Student Assignment Planning Committee who is also working, and they've been working every Wednesday for a few months now, at looking at the entire cluster and making recommendations about how to balance all the schools, right? So in Brockett, Smoke Rise, we had Midvale, Livesey, Tucker Middle, Tucker High School. I think that's all of them, right? Yeah, along with the rest of the district. They will be making recommendations. That committee will be making its own recommendations on how to balance out the schools. That'll take place over the next 2 to 3 years. So that's currently happening right now. So for our purposes, by moving students, we're looking at a minimum of probably 3 school years. Okay? Then from there, it just really comes out of the student assignment planning on anything in the future. Okay? But because we're anticipating the construction to take at least 2 years, we don't want to just keep moving students back and forth. So this is not a temporary thing at this time, right? Did I answer it? Okay.
Who is going to tell us which school my child is going to be assigned to? And I'll add after it's approved by the board. How do we communicate it to the parents?
Okay, so once it's approved, and let's just say, for instance, it's a new zone here that'll be reassigned, those students, they'll be communicated with by our student assignment department and division. We'll be sending messages out here through the principals, and you'll be given notices, and they'll take you through that process. All right, again, we'll know the students that are here, okay? And once approved, there'll be all kinds of lists to make it even more detailed. All right? But if, let's just say it's this zone, if it's another zone, we'll provide the maps. If you live in there, you can always go on the website to the school locator. That'll be updated. You can put your address in, and it'll tell you what school you've been assigned to. All right? So that's why we got to get this done by January to give you all, if there are any changes, enough time before August to be able to make any kind of arrangements that you may want to make. Okay? So we're trying to give you as much time as we can.
Okay. There was a question, what is the expectation with regards to staff, employees, et cetera, for SRE? Yeah.
Expectation. Well, under these scenarios here, those who work at Smoke Rise right now, those who attend Smoke Rise, there's no change happening there other than receiving more students. Okay, so there'll be additional teachers coming into Smoke Rise, but that'll be depending on how many students end up being reassigned to Smoke Rise. Was there more on that?
This also is about staffing, and he happens to be over transportation, so this is a great question. There is a deficit with bus drivers. What will be the impact with these new attendance boundaries with bus drivers?
Yeah, great question. So we already have buses in these areas, and let's assume, just for a hypothetical, let's assume it's this area here. The buses, that are already there, instead of taking those students to Idlewood, would be just taking them to Smoke Rise. So it should be a very minimal impact on busing. It just might be a little bit longer ride for those students. All right, we're anticipating 10 to 15 minutes longer, okay, at this point. Okay, great questions here.
Okay, the last question, There are a few parents not present at this meeting due to different barriers. How are you going to pass this information off to them next year so that they are informed and prepared for their readiness? Yep, since I'm working communications, that'd be efficient for me to answer. I think the first thing that I really appreciate about operations is their transparency. All of these presentations are available on their website, and of course you can see Mr. Chris is video recording this meeting as well. We're going to push this meeting out to the parents and the guardians that were not able to attend so they can be informed, and we will continue to invite them to the meetings, and then once the attendance lines are approved, we will send out the information. And I know the principals too will engage with them. The principals that will be receiving new students and families will also engage with them too as well to welcome them into their schools so they'll be able to meet their new teachers and the school community as well. So there were some questions. Pardon me?
I believe they. Additionally, I believe all these presentations have been translated into other language. What's that?
Top 5. Probably in the top 5.
All right, into the top 5 languages for this community. So this same presentation has also been translated, also being posted on the website. Just give us a couple of days to get everything uploaded. All right, there you go, Jay. We got a mission.
Thank you for adding that, and thank you for being here tonight to assist our families as well. We always appreciate your team. Thank you. Your website for facilities, Mr. Hofstetter?
So there's a couple of websites that you can reach this on, but if you go to the DeKalb Schools website and type in Capital Improvement Program, you'll see some links there. Is it? Do we have it in there? It's there? Oh, it's the last slide. Hang on one second. Trustee Jay wrote it up for us here. All right. Oh, there we go. All right. So you can find all this information. There's 2 websites. DeKalb Schools, Georgia, right, ga.org, CIP. Yep. Or you can go to the Student Assignment Planning website at DeKalbSchoolsGA.org, SAP. Okay. Again, if you think of something later, or you have a neighbor or a friend who maybe could not have made it tonight, and again, there's things you want us to know, please just email us at dcsdbuilds@DeKalbSchoolsGA.org. Please put Idlewood Elementary School in the subject line so we know which school you're addressing, right? We have 130 projects right now across the district, so we just want to make sure we're answering the right one with the right school. Okay, great, appreciate that, thank you. Did you get that, Chris? All right. Are we done? All right. Well, this concludes tonight. We appreciate all the feedback you have given us, and we're going to take it all back. We're going to put it on a big sheet. We're going to look at it, and we're going to come back on January 9th with one recommendation, and we're going to get that feedback there. So please tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your parents, tell anybody you have. Come here because we do want to hear from you, okay? And with that, thank you, and have a good evening.